And we are live. Hey, everybody. Glenn Hausman here with my co-host. I don't even know. I don't like the term co-host. My partner in crime, Mr. Anthony Melchiori over here. And today, again, we have Mr. Chris Green, CEO of Chesapeake Hospitality. Before we get into the conversation, Anthony, I just want to update people on what we're trying to accomplish over here real quick. I'm trying now that this situation has kind of become evident to all of us and what is happening out there. Anthony and I are trying to do broadcasts at the same time every day. Not 1:30, not 2 o'clock, but we're trying to hit on the noon time. So we're working very hard behind the scenes to book guests that'll fit within that period. So expect us to really be going forward at a 12 p.m. start time, East Coast time, for the foreseeable future. Of course, if we get some amazing guests that are coming up and they can't fit into that parameter, we would rather focus on having those incredible personalities be on the show. We got a lot of great people coming up on the show, and one of the people that we got here today is Mr. Chris Green, as we just said, CEO of Chesapeake Hospitality. And Chris is going to be joining us a couple of times every single week so we can experience along with him how his story is unfolding, what they're doing in real time at Chesapeake Hospitality to get through this particular crisis. And I think it's going to be a very informative, educational thing for all of us. So, Chris, the first thing I want to do is saying thank you for being here, and thank you for being so open and honest for what has got to be the most difficult period of your life here.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to the broader industry. I think it's important and probably cathartic for me to talk a little bit about it. The word unprecedented doesn't even fit anymore. This is something that's never been seen or never been dealt with. And as we're processing through it, Chesapeake's a diverse company, and we have assets all around the country in all different stages of the life cycle and different ownership groups. So I think it's easy for me to understand a lot of different perspectives of what's happening all the way across the spectrum. So if it helps and we can talk about things that matter, I'm happy to do it.
Right. Anthony, you want to kick it off?
Well, I think what's really important is that someone in real time that's handling a major company through this process is on our show. So thank you very much. So what I want to do is I want to do something, and if you're not comfortable with going through everything, that's fine. Just leave some things out. But give me a day in your life today. So this morning you woke up and tell me the things that you had to go through, both maybe personally and professionally, to kind of get here today, because we've all had things today that we had to deal with in order to sit here and get this information out. So, because I think that'll relate to people, that we're not just sitting here, like we're not going through the same things they're going through. We're not hearing the same things. I'm in New York, and what's happening in New York is a major crisis, and we're dealing with it and step by step. So what was your day like today?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's true. We all are humans first, right? So I got up this morning early and started reading all the news from yesterday, all the revenue reporting from our revenue side. And I get ready for a call. We have a system-wide call every morning at 7:30 with our entire team. But before that, I've got an 8-year-old who's not in school. So I had to get breakfast ready for an 8-year-old. And I also have a daughter home from college who was still asleep, but I was looking over what she did last night. She is bored to tears, and she loves to be of service. So she was up late last night making face masks. There's apparently a pattern on the internet where you can sew face masks that are usable by our medical professionals. So she's working on that.
Wow.
And that kind of touched me personally, just seeing the service of my children to the broader community. And then we got started, and at 7:30 we'd had about 70 people on a conference call where we updated them what happened yesterday, what we believe is going to happen today, the current state, kind of where we stand on layoffs, quite frankly, staff sizes, any cases of exposure in our hotels, anything that we're doing to deal with any of our guests that may have been exposed, how we're handling the health departments.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
Let's back up and talk about somebody's exposed in your hotel. What's the standard?
Right now, the standard is you got to immediately call the local health department and the health authorities, notify them, and then they have a protocol that they put in place where you basically have to notify not only everybody that's touched that room, everybody that's associated with that employee that's dealt with them, and then you've got to backtrack, and then they have to self-quarantine for 14 days from the date of contact. So
if they self-quarantine in your hotel, do they self-quarantine in your hotel?
Can they self-quarantine in our hotels? I'm assuming they could, but they would have to notify us. That we have not had that yet. We had one guest that was from Canada that did test positive and left the country. And right now we're backtracking to see if we have any exposure to any associates, but we did call the health department to see, what the protocol was.
Okay.
Wow. Anthony, you look like you're on a roll here.
No, continue through your day.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So we go through that, and then at 8:00, everybody disperses. We've split our executive team into 3 different structure groups, tactical groups. One is we're calling the secure group. They're taking care of the hotels, making sure that the staff, the assets, the clients, the customers are all well maintained, operationally sound. And then we have basically our support functions that are helping our owners with cash flow, looking at debt issues in all the hotels, how to handle upcoming cash payments that are due, mortgage payments, tax payments, everything. And then we have the forward-looking group, what we're calling Succeed, that are kind of looking at our business now, looking at all the data that we're seeing. I just saw the STAR data from China. Looks like that they ran 20% occupancy last week, which is good news. And so we're looking for a path forward too, because my stated goal is to get the 1,300 associates that we've had to lay off at Chesapeake back to full employment as soon as humanly possible. So we've got 3 different teams working simultaneously, and then we meet every day at 4:00 to review the day's results and plan for the next day. It's literally like fighting a battle. And in between, I'm on the phone with either other CEOs of hotels. I have a board call with AHLA today at 2:00 to try and get some momentum on the legislation in the Senate and House to get that going and get it passed so we can get some relief. And then talking to owners and my VPs all day long. It's nonstop. I think my poor phone, I don't know about you guys, but I'm constantly searching for battery. So
Let's go back for a second. Did you ever think you would say the words, it's 20% occupancy, and that's pretty good?
no, I mean, I told Glenn I would be transparent. So, and I always have been with him. So our management companies, we're not one of the biggest. We're a top 25 company, but we're definitely not one of the largest. But nobody forecasts or plans for zero revenue. You just can't. I mean, we've had portfolios of hotels come into our company and go out of our company, and you plan for those dips, but zero revenue or 5% revenue, there's no plan for that. So this is the first time in my life when I've kind of been at a loss for words, quite frankly. And then when you start thinking, go ahead.
No, and that's why we're here, because there's sometimes you're lost for words, I'm lost for words, Glenn's lost for words, and if I'm at a loss for words, that's a problem. And
Yeah.
I just did a Facebook Live, and I literally was on for 4 minutes, and I got off because I really had nothing else to say. No one was asking questions. I just found myself having to go outside. I'm very lucky; it's a nice day in New York, and I sat by the pool and ate a bag of M&Ms, and then I came in and I felt better.
Yeah.
So when we're lost, we need to get ourselves back on track. So like you're in a position of supporting your team. You go down, you get weak, your whole team goes down. So thank you, and I applaud you. And as a father, as a business person, as someone that's trying to bring everyone together, and this, Glenn, I think feels this way because we've been having these off phone conversations or off conference conversations that we're human and we need each other right now. We need each other. And the good news, bad news is it's going to get better.
Yeah.
But it's going to get worse. But it's going to get worse first.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to get worse first. I mean, there's no question if you're watching all the trackers that the path of new cases is going up rapidly, especially in New York. So we're thinking of you guys in New York for sure. And the rest of the U.S.
Everybody's got to take this seriously and sit down. Everybody's got to calm. In New York, most people are. Some areas in New York, I heard, are people still walking around like nothing's going on. But you got to sit down. Like I'm in my car, and sometimes I'll just drive around in my car just to see what's going on with my windows up, and I feel guilty doing that. I'm like, I'm in my car, I'm by myself, I'm away from everyone, but I even feel guilty doing that. I couldn't imagine just walking into a park and start talking to somebody. We need to shut down.
All right, I got a very important question here from Gary Rementer. Plain or peanut M&Ms, Anthony Melchiori?
When I was a kid, plain, now peanut.
Yeah, I was the same way. I think that's really important. I could not handle all the different flavors with the peanut M&Ms. Now Those are my favorite. Chris, what do you think? What's your favorite? Are you going to come with like caramel coated
No,
pretzel
no,
ones or
no. I'm a
something?
peanut guy too, for sure. I don't think I ever liked plain ever. So
Well,
yeah.
then you're a strange guy.
All right.
Let me ask you. I'm sorry, Glenn.
I was
just
going to say,
wanna
before we
start
get
the
right
story.
back into this, Chris had mentioned the numbers are getting back to 20% on Monday's show, March 30th. We're going to have at 12 p.m. Jan Freitag, SVP at STR, followed by David Eisen of Hot Stats, who is going to share exactly what is happening over in Asia and what that means to us. So I just wanted to get that show note there as well. Anthony, take it away.
I want to ask you about bankers and creditors and debt. I just had a friend of mine who just built a beautiful resort, and he has a mortgage payment, pretty extensive mortgage payment, and he had a fight with his bank the last couple of days to get that extended for 6 months. And he said he won it, but it was 2 or 3 days of sheer panic and sheer stress. I'm surprised that that happened. I'm surprised that a bank, um, was that difficult to deal with.
Yeah, so we've seen the spectrum. We have owners that have regional debt, and then we have owners that have CMBS debt through the big servicers. And obviously, regional debt normally is more relationship driven. The big CMBS stuff is not. It's much more difficult to deal with. I think, quite frankly, when we just said we don't know which way to turn right now, I don't think the banks do either, because you're looking at a cascading waterfall of issues. Hotels are first, but then you've got retail going down hard. Then you've got multifamily going down hard. Everything is going to be collapsing on them. So they're not sure which tranche of their business to be focused on, because everybody has debt spread around. The fact remains that every hotel is in trouble, every hotel. So everybody that has a loan on a hotel is going to need some form of workout or defeasance. I mean, they're just going to have to. And I think the speed at which you get there is going to be different by the type of loan you have, whether it's relation driven or not. So.
I'm not going to ask you to be a mind reader, but what is your gut with when do we start seeing keys handed back?
Not for a while. I mean, my gut is 6 months probably to a year, because remember, every hotel is going to be in trouble. So I think that right now we're going to get through we're going to hear what happens with the government soon. I hope, if they can get their act together, and then we're going to
Sorry,
wishful thinking.
Reflexive chuckle, thinking that they're going to get their act together.
Yeah. And once that happens, then we'll know the path forward, right? Whether it's going to be debt funding or relief on interest or whatever. And when that occurs, then we'll know the path. And then we'll know which loans are really in trouble and hotels are really in trouble and which ones are not. Because quite frankly, you got to look at how this happened. February, I was at Alice in January and things were great. And then in end of February, the industry had a good month. We were flattish to slightly up. Everybody was celebrating. And then 9 days later, it's like this. So people had levered up over the past 6 or 7 years. Debt, on debt to ratios have gone up higher. And we were in good times. And even I was saying, look, we're at all-time occupancy highs, all-time RevPAR highs. Even if we flatten out, we're good. Well, nobody expected this. So I don't think anybody has the answers right now. And I'm the first one to say that it's too big of a math problem for me to get my head around right now.
We were just in Vegas. Glenn, when we were in Vegas talking to Shannon.
We were there around mid to late February, 22, 23-ish range.
So a couple of weeks ago. And I remember after our conversation, I was downstairs in the lobby and I saw Shannon talking to a young manager. And
Shannon is a VP of hotels over at the Aria complex. She also runs Vidara. Sorry, go on.
And I'm in the lobby and I'm watching her talk to a young manager, and she was probably strategizing some VIP arrival or some kind of meeting that was going to happen. But it looked like a intense but very normal conversation about what we're going to do today. And she was in the corner talking to her, and now they're shut down. And I just find that fascinating, that the biggest problem that they had at that moment was whatever meeting they were going into to talk about budgets or expenses or revenues or VIPs or whatever it was. And now a friend of mine,
we lost Anthony there. And that is the beauty of live broadcasts, Chris. While he is trying to, and he's back. Continue.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Although I'm trying to mute you because I'm getting jealous that you have so many good things to say today.
Unfortunately,
Anthony.
I can't hear you, so I don't know what just happened. But I'll continue since you can hear me. So now there's an executive at MGM making sure that water is on in every room. So his job security is going around to a 4,000 room property, making sure the water's turned on every 7 days.
Wow.
Yeah. It's honestly, we're going to look back. I'm trying to keep notes. We're trying to look back. We're going to look back and say, I don't even know how this happened, quite frankly. I mean, we lost Anthony again, but Glenn, the thing is, we have GMs driving the shuttle and checking rooms in and wiping down the elevators because that's the only jobs that are left right now. We're down to between 7 and 15 associates in full service hotels right now.
Wow. 7 to 15 associates in full service hotels. So you said you had 1,300 layoffs there, Chris. Have you taken the step to close any properties at this point, or are you just trying your best right now to keep the status quo?
We haven't. We've taken the position that when we look at the cash flow forecasts, if there's a very minor difference between skeleton operations and closing, that we feel like it's easier to get a hotel back to ramping from slightly open to from fully closed, right? There's more to do. You may run into inspection issues, reopening. And we have a lot of older assets, if you have grandfather issues with the reopening and getting a new CO, or who knows what that could cause. So we're going to try and stay open in most of our locations.
Right.
And how many locations do you have? I'm sorry.
Just under 40.
Okay. And what market is not seeing as much damage? Like
Good question.
Like, I know they're all seeing damage, but what's the?
No, I mean the secondary and tertiary stuff. So we do see people moving away from hotspots. So we have some stuff in Pennsylvania. People are moving away from New York City. We have some stuff in West Virginia. People are moving away from the DC metro area and going to stay in hotels. There is some of that going on. And then anywhere along the infrastructure lines, so shipping, train lines, they're seeing increased activity of driving supplies through.
So if I'm a housekeeper this morning and I'm cleaning a room, what am I geared with that I wasn't geared with 2 weeks ago? Like what's the standard for a housekeeper cleaning a room?
Well, you got your personal protective equipment for sure, right? Gloves. You're not obviously doing masks. There's no need to do that as long as you're doing gloves. All the Ecolab. I shouldn't be, I guess, pushing companies, but we're a national partner with Ecolab.
Maybe we'll actually get them to sponsor us at some point. We could use a little love. Ecolab, if you're out there, love us. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, they're a national partner of ours, and so they've done a great job of providing the cleaning directions for all our hotels, which we just had an update yesterday to make sure that everybody is, and we're doing it once a week to make sure that no matter what happens in staff changes, everybody's aware. It's really not a ton different. It's just the personal protective equipment that they're wearing when they clean.
Yeah, well, that makes a whole lot of sense. I do want to let everybody know that at the top of the hour, we're going to have on Bob Gilbert, the CEO of HSMAI, to understand how they're grappling with this issue. And then later in the week, we got some other incredible interviews as well, such as Raul Leal, the Virgin Hotels CEO, is going to be on Thursday, so I'm really looking forward to that, as well as Chris Green is going to be back, and Michael Schindler from Four Corners Advisors. Tomorrow, we've got the CEO of Remington Hotels, Sloan Dean, on, as well as a group from Boston University to keep talking. But Chris, to get back into this for a second, somebody's curious about what about this whole idea about getting people to take this self-isolation thing more seriously, because people going out and hanging out on the beach for spring break is going to hurt your business. It's going to hurt my business, because that just makes this process go on longer and longer. How are you thinking about these kinds of issues?
I mean, I'm encouraging everybody to take it very seriously. The sooner we behave, the sooner we'll get back to business.
Right.
And you're putting people's lives at risk. I'm a people person. I mean, I spend my life with people at hotels, out, and I've really been very hermit-like the past 10 days because I want to make sure my family's safe. I've got older mother-in-law and father-in-law. Well, he survived polio, and he's, I can put him at serious risk. And I know people are thinking that way. We just can't do it. We just need to listen. I mean, it's going to be bad. Why don't we make it really, really bad for a month and get past?
Right.
And then instead of making it kind of bad for a long time, I agree. Everybody should listen.
Because Chris, you
There's a-
can't. What are you going to do? You're going to go from 2% occupancy to 1% occupancy for that short period of time. Better to use that cliche, rip off the Band-Aid now, get us through this quickly, and then we can start building our lives up again. Anthony?
You're seeing in California, New York, hotspots, and hopefully we'll contain this sooner rather than later, but they're running out of respirators. They're running out of materials. Our governor here is doing everything he can to ensure that we get what we need. But this is going to happen if people don't shut down, just look at it as a New York problem, as an LA problem, or a China problem, or an Italy problem. It's coming to your neighborhood if you're not careful. So we have to be extra, extra careful. I just heard somebody say something on the news that was really disheartening about there's the older generation to save our economy may have to take one for the team. That's basically what he said. And he was lieutenant governor of a major state. And he said, we can't shut our economy down for the older generation. That made me sick. Think about where we are for him to say that. And I almost don't want to repeat it, and I almost didn't repeat it, but that's what we're talking about. When you have an executive of a major state saying something like that, I mean, if you didn't get the memo, it's time to get the effing memo.
Yeah. Listen, anybody who knows me at all knows that I'm a human guy first, right? I'm real thankful that I get to do what I do for a living, but I'm about the humans and the human connection and people succeeding and seeing success. I know, I'm the son of a military enlisted guy. I travel. I grew up hard work and caring for people, and yeah, it makes me. I would rather go penniless and see everybody be okay than anything else. I mean, we need to look out for people and care for others. And listen, we're the greatest country on earth, in my opinion, and we'll be back. But we need to do what we're supposed to do and look out for others right now.
Right. And that greatest generation that needs our help right now, the only reason why we're all here and not speaking German, right, or Japanese is because of that generation. So we do owe them some sort of debt of gratitude. But Chris, I also want to ask, I had this idea the other day, and I think hotel companies are starting to focus on that. Getting your employees that you've had to lay off in the short term, maybe get them to work at a grocery store or some other sort of thing, which is a booming business right now. Have you thought about that?
Oh yeah. So we right now, as we speak, our corporate marketing director is working on a landing page for all of our laid off associates, where we'll have by state resources of every single person that's hiring, whether it's the Amazon fulfillment centers, which are hiring a ton of people and actually doing training right now in some of our hotels, the grocery stores. So we're putting all of our resources for all of our people that have been laid off, not only how they can get jobs, but how they can stay connected. I'm going to post a weekly update for them on what's looking like in the business, when I think they can come back to work, how they get back to work, watching out for their benefits, right? Our health plan has a 13-week return period. So if they were on health, they can get right back on without having to re-enroll within 13 weeks. So I'm hoping that in 13 weeks, we're bringing people back. So we want to keep, I think, and actually you mentioned Sloan Dean. Sloan's doing a great job at Remington. He's a great CEO, and he's doing a lot of the same things, like really connecting with his laid off associates. So I think all of us, including the 4 or 5 guys that I call friends that are CEOs of management companies, this is creating a camaraderie that we've maybe never had. We were friends, but now we're like ride or die type buddies, because we're going through something, trying to help our people that we never imagined ever.
Right, and that's true. And that's something that you said last week on the call, where you guys are really trying to help each other and exchange ideas and best practices so you could all survive this together.
Yeah.
Right. Anthony?
You said something about the military, that you're from a military family. I was in the military. If you're a young man or woman out there, or even a little bit older, why not think about joining the military?
Yeah.
We're going to need all the help we can get. And I'm sure that our National Guard, our reserves, our military, or working for the government in some kind of capacity, now may be a time to do that. I just had a friend go from the hospitality industry, and he became a fireman. He has a steady job now. Unfortunately, he's in harm's way, not only fighting fires, but also now going into people's homes with this going on. But if you really you have a need to serve, that's one way to serve. And you can always get back in the hospitality industry later. But I think, like you said, we have to come together individually and just forget about competition.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw today that TSA is hiring. I mean, I don't know. People have their different opinions about the TSA, but it's a job, right? So,
Well, it's a good job. It's a good job. It's a fair job. It's what you make of it. I don't care what job's out there. I don't care if you're sweeping floors or you're CEO of a management company. If the job is what you make of it. And nowadays, when you're able to put milk on the table, I always said, I don't give a shit if I have to sweep floors. I'll sweep floors to raise my family.
yep,
And I may have to sweep floors one day. Okay.
yep,
So TSA is far from sweeping floors. It's a great government job. It's a mindset. If you go in there and you think they're dealing with customers, is difficult. Any place is difficult to deal with people.
yeah,
It's a mindset. I've seen TSA all over this world, all over this country, and I will tell you something. The majority of them are nothing but positive, nothing but friendly. And we got to give them a break now. If you are traveling for whatever reason,
yeah,
remember those people are right there. They're on the front lines. And if you're rude to one of those people now, you probably don't want to pass me in the street. It's just not a good place to be right now. You've got to take care of the people that are taking care of us. Again, we've talked about this a lot, Glenn. Whether you're a truck driver, whether you're the guy that's delivering the Amazon box, which is still delivering within a day or two, whoever you are, we went from not wanting people to make X amount of dollars minimum wage, and now those minimum wage workers are keeping us alive. Okay, they're keeping us supplied. So remember those people, because either one of us, all three of us, could be one of those people very soon.
yeah.
So we just gotta, there by the grace of God go I live by that every single day of my life. Way
Yeah,
before this all happened.
you said something earlier about the comment made by the lieutenant governor. What I'm noticing, one thing is under stress, you see sometimes the best and the worst, right? And I'm hoping that I think what we're seeing in the hospitality industry is the best of people. And I second what you say, Anthony. I hope that when we come out the backside of this, we're all just a little bit kinder and a little bit more understanding of what people go through on a day-to-day basis and the effort they put in to make our life so comfortable, right? I mean, we just need to really recognize how good we have it. And if you're in America, you got it good. So
Right. And listen, every country's going through this, every person's going through this, and it's an enemy you can't see. So we have to take care of each other. And that's it. Glenn,
Yeah. So what's going on over here is I got that question of the day, the one that we get every single day. This day it's coming from Spain, where she says, Giovanni Falso, we are starting to turn hotel beds into hospital beds. What's your opinion on that? I know it changes all the time. Where are you coming down on that today, Chris Green?
So obviously that program's been floating around. I think that it's an option when the hotel's in the right spot. There's a lot of concerns about that too. Is for our estate, right? I told you we're looking at staying open.
Yep.
So we're going to try and be available to the travelers in the marketplace. I think if you're thinking about closing your hotel, then you should certainly consider that option. The problem would be, when do you come back? Now, let me say that by saying this: if people really, well, first of all, I'm a third-party manager, so they're not my hotels. I don't own them. But if people really need them, we have the kind of owners that I think would do the exact right thing if it got to that point. But there's going to be plenty of hoteliers that want to be involved.
Yep. So we've only got about a minute of your time, because you do have a hard out in order to go help save our universe there by getting on this AHLA call. Any final words from today before we see you again on Thursday?
I'm hoping that we'll have some good news Thursday about finance, right? About some relief from the government. It would be awesome to have that, because right now we're in a little bit of a in-between mode, right? We've shut most of the hotels down to very low occupancy, skeleton crews, or closed a lot of hotels, and we're kind of in a wait and see, because really nothing's happening. I look at my hotels and we have less than 10% occupancy around the state, pretty much system wide. So hotel business is really kind of not really happening. So we need to know for our owners what's going to happen with finance and debt and any opportunities for government stimulus.
Right. Anthony?
No, give me one story before you go. One positive story that made you smile today.
I put on LinkedIn a note from one of our housekeepers in one of our hotels. She wrote a note to her, I guess it's her housekeeping manager, and it said, I'm kind of paraphrasing. She said, "Thank you. We're grateful for your leadership. Thank you for putting up with our complaining. I know it must be hard to lay people off, but those of us that are here are grateful, and we're going to get through this." And it was one of our housekeeping. It was just beautiful and heartfelt, and in two ways, very happy and very sad, because she's there but 1,300 of others of our team members are not. So I look for the little pieces to keep me. I'm more a glass half full guy, so I look for the good things every day, and we'll keep pushing forward. That's what I told my team. It's time to start looking forward. We know what the bottom, I think, is now. So what's the future look like?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, you got to go, so let's get you out here. I'm going to remove you from
Thank
the
you.
screen, and we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you again for being so open and honest with us. We'll see you next time. So, Anthony, we're still waiting for Bob Gilbert to sign on over here. So while we're waiting for him to appear on the show, let's talk about another issue or two that we're seeing out there. I'm really impressed by how people seem to be really rallying around each other out there and having the incredible sense of teamwork that I don't think I've ever seen in this industry before.
Well, I'm noticing two things. I'm noticing that out of necessity, because it is a necessity to do that. And I'm not saying people aren't kind out of the goodness of their heart, but you have no choice, right? Number one. And number two, I'll be honest with you. I'm looking through people's eyes and looking into their soul. And even the leaders that we're having on, they look a little, I don't want to say scared, but they look a little lost. And I have not seen leaders in our industry at this level, not saying who we're having on, but just in general when I'm talking to people on the phone, people are a little bit lost. So that's why it's really important to take a time out, get your focus back, so your team, your family doesn't see that. I think it's important to bring that out in private with the people you trust, but when you're in front of people, you really need to show that. Again, we're not on solid footing, but put your ice skates on and show that every day. One of the things I do, or every other day, or every third day, is I do a TikTok with my daughter, and that seems to be getting a lot of people liking that.
Well, TikTok. We got Mr. Bob Gilbert here, CEO of HSMAI. I do want to say, Bob, you are live to the entire world. We got people from not just the United States, but from all over as well. And since you're, you've got international in your title, I think it's very apropos that we have a global audience. Thanks so much for being here today, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. A lot going on in the hotel industry these days.
So, Bob, why don't you tell people? I'm sorry. Why don't you tell people what your organization is, who you are, so they understand? Because I don't know if everybody understands exactly how important you are.
Sure, Anthony. The Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International is a global professional society of sales, marketing, and revenue optimization executives around the world. We operate in every part of the world where there's hotels, and we basically are there. Our mission simply is to help hotels grow their revenue, inspire sales, inspire marketing, optimize revenue, and grow their sales. So that's what we do to help our members.
So right now, where you got what's happening. What's the message?
Well, the message that we're sending to our members, I mean, obviously there's a number that have been furloughed, which is really unprecedented in this day and age, because any of your revenue generation folks are typically the last ones that are going to see a layoff. But so many hotel owners are really struggling with liquidity issues to maintain the payrolls of even the people that they know they need to have. But our message clearly to the sales and marketing and revenue folks out there are, number one, what are you doing right now to make the highest and best use of your time that will lead you to the recovery and will put you in a position to recover faster than your competitors when that time comes.
So what should people be doing then, from your point of view, that you're advising them to take part in?
Well, I mean, we break it into three buckets. From a sales perspective, there's a lot of things they should still be doing. They should be talking to their customers. Most salespeople are not talking to groups, for example, that are just booking in the next 90 days. They're talking to groups that are booking, 6 months and a year out. So you've got to stay in contact with your current customers. There's always times for prospecting. Find the type of business that represents demand that still is being generated, even in this crazy window that we're in right now. There is business out there from transportation companies and medical companies, and emergency response teams are still using hotel rooms out there. And some people tend to forget about that, but there's a lot of demand that still can be generated during these difficult times. If you've got if you got hotels that are closed around the street, somebody is displacing what little business they may have had left. So make sure you're getting that as well.
Right, and it's important to discern that calling on customers now and trying to find a niche business that's available is not taking advantage of the situation. It's you got to keep people employed. We're doing two things. We
Absolutely.
have a health crisis and we have a financial crisis at the same time. We typically have one or the other. When we had one, 10 years ago, you didn't have the financial crisis. It was before or right after the financial crisis where we were better. We're having both of them collide, and that's really difficult in a real serious way. It's not like they're 30% health problem or 30% financial problem. We're basically at high alert on both areas. So I want people to understand that when people are still selling, people are still recruiting business, it's to keep people employed, it's to keep our economy going. And I think there's a way of doing it. And I think there's a way to do that. And also I want to say, and I'm sure you're saying the same thing to consumers, is don't cancel, postpone.
Correct. Absolutely. And Anthony, you're right. I mean, this really is the perfect storm. I mean, after people thought 9/11 was horrific for so many different aspects of what it did to the hotel industry, but shortly thereafter, people still were traveling. You didn't have this viral anxiety that people have now about traveling. And we've seen it just impact the whole global economy in ways we never thought we could see anything impact the global economy even 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it clearly has been a response nobody anticipated.
Yeah, I don't personally see how people are referencing 9/11 to this. I just don't understand. It's a completely different thing.
Absolutely.
Both extraordinarily tragic. So I'm not going to compare the two, but they're different. They're very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're only referencing in terms of other times people have seen huge drops in demand from a historical perspective, and every hotel company CEO has used that as an example, as well as the recessions and the wars and depressions and things like that, and nothing relates to anything we've ever seen before. You heard Arnie Sorensen and Kristen Setta both say in the near 100-year history of Hilton or the near 100-year history of Marriott, they've never seen anything like this.
Right. And, it gets to that whole idea that we always had Black Swan as an asterisk, right? And, and it was really an afterthought. And I don't think people were really preparing for a real Black Swan event that's occurring right now, which is upending absolutely everything. So how are your members at HSMAI coming to terms with everything now? Because we've gotten through the maybe shock and disbelief part of it, and people are starting to become a little bit more rational and logical about what to do next. Is that an accurate assessment among your membership base? What are they thinking about?
Well, it's hard to generalize because there's so many different variables, Glenn. You've got some select service hotels that are still running decent occupancies depending on the market that they're in, and then you've got major markets where major 1,000-room plus convention hotels have shut down. I mean, look at Las Vegas. I think the last couple of weeks has really been triage for most hotels and hotel companies, just trying to identify what's the situation, deal with the immediate issues at hand, taking care of the employees, the staff. That has to be first and foremost, and their families, making sure that anybody that was exposed to the virus was taken care of. And then it was after the empathy there, the next step was taking care of the business. What do we do from that point forward? And certainly there has been a plethora of calls coming into salespeople about changing dates. At first, people didn't know, is this going to be a postponement or a cancellation? And even some organizations that had to cancel didn't have people that they could even get to their events. So there's dealing with all those types of issues. So I think people are certainly now in the mode of bringing out their plan B or their plan C for dealing with the crisis at hand. But I think everybody agrees there's no playbook for this. Nobody could have anticipated this. Yet you're right, Glenn. We've talked about Black Swan events in the past, and I think every economist we've had speak at any of our events over the last year has always said everything in the economy in the U.S., the fundamentals are strong, but there's that asterisk. But everybody sort of had their contingency plan, but there couldn't have been a plan for what we've witnessed in the last couple of weeks.
Right. Absolutely. I think the only one who did think of this was Bill Gates, who was out there warning people for a number of years that the world is not prepared for an event such as this. So should people be already thinking about life after, or do you think people are still in this triage mode right now? Or maybe they're in some sort of quasi in between state?
I would like to hope that all the RevGen people are beyond the triage mode, are now in the forecasting and the planning for what's in Q2 and what's beyond the second quarter of this year. Many of the operations folks and certainly the human resources departments are going to be in triage mode for some time, because they've seen, volumes of activity and disruption that they've never experienced before. But the sales and marketing people need to be talking to the customers. The marketing people need to be redefining their messages. There's already, a lot of marketing has basically halted to some degree, but people need to recraft the message to make sure that your brand represents what you want it to be when we come out on the other side of this. You may have already seen a great video that Las Vegas put out a couple of days ago that really represents the brand they want to represent, and they want to invite you back when you can come. And the revenue people need to be using this time, back to your first question, to make sure they are monitoring every single thing that's going on in all the different distribution channels. Somebody has to be the driver of the recovery, and it's going to start with making sure all the right inventories are opened in the right channels at the right place at the right time, and your salespeople are calling the right customers. I mean, these people need to be driving the recovery and watching all the indicators that are out there that when people will start traveling again.
So let me ask you a pointed question. Somebody has a business, a convention in, say, April, May is not going to happen. They feel pretty comfortable with booking it and maybe even giving you a deposit in October or September. And they say, okay, we're going to do this, but instead of X amount of rate, say just for giggles, $100, we're going to give you $50. We're going to give you a check today. Book it right now for me, and I'll give you the business. If not, I'm going to give it to somebody else. What do you do?
Well, I think every customer is different. The hotel has to assess that individual situation. But for the most part, right now, the demand for the groups that are moving from the Q2 into Q3 and Q4, there may not be a whole lot of space available for your preferred dates or your preferred, space that you need for that. So thinking that there's going to be, a bunch of deals out there necessarily in the future may be a big misperception. On the front of a lot of meeting planners. I know after again, not to use 9/11 as an analogy, but when the demand curve came back after 9/11, there was a huge pent-up demand for people to meet and people to travel. And I think you'll see a very similar thing here, because there is that pent-up demand that will be good business for hotels, hopefully in Q3, Q4,
Right.
and into 2021.
So as we're penting up over there, we still got all these empty rooms. You come up with some great ideas about trying to find those alternative sources of business, but how can people actually find those alternative sources of business for their hotels within the local communities? Do you go to a hospital? What do you do?
It's going to be different per market. I mean, you've got to know what's going on. You've got to be in touch with your local destination marketing organization. You've got to be in tune with the other hotels in the community, your local government. What is going on in your market that's specific. Every market is seeing this and responding to it differently. So the demand is going to be different. People, there may be some drive business, for example, and some leisure destinations for people that used to, we're going to take it to go to Europe or something. So is there drive business that you can redirect or market in the short term? But when demand is really low, it's almost impossible, if not very, very difficult, to stimulate demand, generate new demand.
And right now, people need to stop traveling. People, I don't care what state you're in, everybody just needs. And I hate to say it, and it's so counterintuitive to everything I believe in. But right now, everybody's just got to calm down, sit down, let the professionals take care of what's going on. Let's get our economy back as fast as possible. Jacob Job Center is being turned into a hospital. Do I need to say more?
Right. And we may see some hotels doing that. I mean, there may be some
we're seeing
hotel
it around. We're seeing it now. We're seeing it now.
Sure. Yeah. And so from a sales and marketing perspective, I think that's an opportunity. How can you create an opportunity out of a really tough situation? Put your goodwill to use and figure out what are alternate uses for the resources you have, whether it's the food you had in your kitchens, whether it's your staff that can be redeployed elsewhere, whether it's your function space or your guest rooms that you can repurpose for something else.
Right.
Again, those are decisions that need to be looked at on a market by market basis for the
Right,
short term.
you're saying a lot of things that overlap very nicely with what Chris Green, the CEO of Chesapeake Hospitality, was just saying prior to your arrival on here. He was our first guest on the show, and I'm wondering. He was saying there are a lot of folks. He's getting business in secondary and tertiary markets from folks that are abandoning the large cities in order to. To rest this out. So people who are leaving New York City are finding hotels and other places. And that might be a good opportunity for some of you hoteliers out there in some of the smaller markets to appeal directly to folks in the bigger cities that are looking for some sort of relief so they don't have to be stuck in a small apartment for the next 3-4 weeks.
It's an area you got to be careful, though, Glenn, because as Anthony said, people shouldn't be traveling in the short term. As you're looking for recovery, and once the travel restrictions are lifted, then you can begin marketing and begin targeting travelers that it's where it's safe to travel.
I'm not even thinking about like, hey, let's go away for 3-4 days. I'm thinking I need to get out of this apartment and have a home for the next month. Maybe I could stay at a hotel, and maybe there's some opportunity there. So you're still doing this the stay in place kind of thing to help all of society, but you might be able to get a little bit more relief from the smaller confines of your neighborhood as well.
And that's possible. There's one resort I talked to last week that actually is doing quite well because they have, extended condos and cottages, and a lot of resorts built this type of product, and they have people that have come in there to do their self-quarantine at some type of a destination resort.
Right, so, Anthony.
Right. Yeah, and if I was single and didn't have a family, I'd probably go off into the woods somewhere, probably up at the Roxbury, and stay at the Roxbury Contemporary Resort and hang out there for a while. So I completely understand that. But a lot of the travel now is absolutely mandatory travel that's happening because you can't shut off the supply chain. There's so many emergency functions that are happening right now. And again, getting milk into the store is critical as getting a needle to a hospital, because people got to eat and people got to sustain themselves to stay healthy. So it's just as important. I think a truck driver, and not compare a truck driver to a doctor, but they both have very important jobs right now.
Well, and that's one area where there's certainly a surge of jobs right now. You've seen, pharmacies are hiring, and Amazon and UPS and all the transportation systems outside of airlines and hotels are clearly an opportunity for job seekers right now.
Yeah, and right now, if you wanted to get into online marketing or online video marketing, or now's the time to do it. I just literally in 24 hours with the help of Tamara Thompson, helped me basically set up my own home studio because I travel a lot. I don't usually stay home and do things like this. So now's the time to not only get technically savvy, but maybe now's the time to think of a different business that you can be successful in. And there's no shame in changing your job or even changing your status and going from X amount of dollars to a lower salary just to have health benefits. And there may have been shame about it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, where people are like, oh, that guy went from being a general manager to now he's, he's delivering Amazon or he's doing Uber or whatever. Hey, you got to do what you got to do, put food on the table, period, end of story.
Yeah, I think I agree, Anthony. I think the bottom line is, though, the hotel industry is going to need commerce to really be able to rebound. And as a couple of asset managers have identified, this isn't going to be a short-term rebound. It could go it could go up to 3 to 5 years before we see a recovery because of the magnitude and the depth. When you've got as many hotels running 3, 5, 10, 15% occupancy, or brands reporting those numbers for an entire system, that's just unheard of. So that recovery is going to take some time.
Right, and the stock market, even if it comes back relatively quickly, people are going to feel a lot less wealthy, or they're going to feel a lot apprehensive. When you say, depression era mentality, I think when we come out of this, we're going to have the coronavirus mentality that we thought we were safe and cushioned and we were good, and then all of a sudden 50% or more of your net worth is gone. You're not going to be traveling as fast, maybe, or maybe you are, depending on your mindset. I I'm going to be traveling as much as possible with my family as soon as this is over to get the economy, as long as I can afford to do that.
And Anthony, you're talking directly to, the sales, marketing, and revenue management people, the hotel industry people that are responsible for the recovery and that rev gen. They need to look at that consumer behavior and identify what markets are going to be ready to travel and recover first. Is it going to be the business traveler? Is it going to be the leisure traveler? Is it going to be meetings and conventions? And even within those three primary sectors, will it be subsectors like pharmaceutical or medical or others that are going to be traveling faster and recovering faster than other industry sectors? And that's the job of good sales and marketing and people being able to identify those, know what the indicators are, and go out and find them and build that business back up for your hotel or your company.
One of the things I'm concerned about, one of the things you saw in 2008 in the recession is when we came out of that recession, we did more with less. When we come out of this, we're going to do much more with much less. And that's one of the things I'm afraid of, that people are going to be so conservative in business and not hire. If they had 50 employees, they're going to hire 30 employees to try to get ahead of the curve. So I am a little concerned that the unemployment will not go down as much as we're hoping, as quickly as we're hoping, because again, I remember distinctly in 2008 where staffing went down significantly because not only technology, but you expected more from your employee. Just think about news organizations, right? I remember when I first came up in this business, you would see a reporter on the street with a cameraman, with a sound person, with an assistant producer, and the person, a producer, and a person that and a reporter. 4 people, at least 4 people. Okay. Now what do you see? You see one person with a camera, a mic, doing it all themselves, getting in their own car, putting their stuff in the back, and going. So news organization figured it out, unfortunately, and put a lot more pressure on people. And so I'm concerned of what's going to happen not only in the hospitality industry, but in other industries where we're not getting back to full employment.
Well, I think this will separate the successful companies from the unsuccessful based upon the tier, the price tier, the product tier, and the market they represent. But good operators are going to know where they can manage an optimum amount of staff to develop the experience for that brand that's going to have an impact on the customers. And again, that gets more into the marketing side of the business and the operations side. But clearly, there's technology enhancements that have made a lot of those improvements possible. But it goes back to the revenue generation functions. Prior to guest stays, somebody's got the old adage, nothing happens till somebody sells something. It still applies. And so those sales and marketing and revenue folks need to make sure they've got the pipeline seated and ready for whatever customer is best suited to that hotel and that market for when the recovery comes. It's up to operations to make sure they've got the hotel staff properly to deliver the best experience they can for that guest without having that guest, leave with really bad reviews.
Right. I absolutely love that attitude. Anthony, anything else that you think we need to get out of Bob, or are we feeling pretty good about today's show?
Bob, you taking time out of your day to do this with everything that's coming your way, with all the questions, with all your personal things that I'm sure you're challenged with, to come on and give us time is really important to this show. We're having some very important guests, you being one of them, and we can't do the show and get the information out. One of the things I get every single day, and Glenn gets every single day, is thank you so much for getting people on to give us information. It helps us. So information is power right now. Information is currency right now. And you've been, again, I can't tell you thank you enough.
Well, it's my pleasure. And just a reminder for all your listeners, Glenn and Anthony, for people looking for more resources, specifically what sales, marketing, and revenue management people should be doing now, they should definitely be going to our website at hsmai.org. We've got a coronavirus resource center. We've got a number of webinars we've done recently, and recaps are there of those. We've already gathered best practices and case studies from marketings from other crisis communication plans we've seen. So there's a whole plethora of resources specifically for those sales, marketing, and revenue stakeholders.
What happens if you're not a member? Can I still get those resources?
Yes, all those are outside the firewall. They're available for anybody at this point in time. Yes.
Excellent. Well, that's really good news. Bob, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for what you do. It's good to
Great.
We'll have you on soon.
Yeah, we're going to let Bob go right now, and I just want to wrap up with Anthony. Anthony, man, we got some really great content come for the rest of the week. I mean, tomorrow we got, again, Sloan Dean, the president and CEO of Remington Hotels, and then we're going to be focusing on what's going on at the college level with Boston University. It looks like next week we're going to even get on UNLV. On Thursday, we got Raul Leal, the Virgin Hotels CEO, Michael Schindler, Four Corner Advisor CEO, and we're going to have Chris Green back as well. And on Friday, we got Keith Kefjin of Ethos, and he's going to be talking to us about servant leadership and a couple of other really cool people too, right, Anthony?
Can you announce that person that we've been talking about?
Can you announce it in person?
No, not that person. The other person that came through my friend.
I don't know which one you're talking about. I don't want to say the wrong name. Why don't you just say the one you're thinking of?
Well, I don't want to say it because I'm not sure if they're on yet. But
well, then we'll have
Friday.
On Friday, Mystery Day.
We are going to have some what are we calling it? Festive Friday.
Feel Good Friday.
Feel Good Friday.
Friday.
So we have a musical guest that I'm really excited about. Somebody that I know and love, you know and love, and someone that's pretty famous. So we'll have that musical guest, and I'm not really comfortable announcing it yet. I'll announce it probably on Thursday. And we're also going to have, which I'm very comfortable announcing, Carrie Lachlan from Extreme Home Makeover, which is one of the biggest shows on TV right now. She used to be on my show on Hotel Impossible, and now she is one of the designers. And she's going to talk about not only design, but also organization, because since everybody's home, we're going to give ways to not only keep your family busy, but to organize your life while you're in lockdown, and talk about some design tips, as well as talk about the show and just life in general. She's one of my favorite human beings in the history of human beings. So she's going to be on, and if you go to her Instagram, Carrie Lachlan, she's just amazing. She's just really keeping it real.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Anthony, what another interesting, informative program. I wish I could say it was fun, but this is not really fun times, but we are going to be doing our best in order to help bring you the messaging out there that you need to hear to help empower you in this time of need. So for Anthony and myself, Glenn, I want to thank you all for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. New York time, Eastern Daylight Time. And then after that, it looks like we'll be on a schedule of 12 o'clock every single day, unless, we get some people that can't do it at that time. But we're trying our best. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for being here, and have a great day.